Hey, I'm Sophia. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories take their time, and they are told the way I'd tell a friend late at night. I really hope you enjoy them. This story has one update on it and my own opinion at the end. Comment and tell me if you agree. Let's begin. When my parents tried to control my life decisions, I packed my bags and created my future. My mother's fingernails dug into my forearm as she tried to stop me from zipping the suitcase, and the sting snapped me into this weird, cold focus. The bedroom smelled like my vanilla body spray and the oniony dinner we'd argued through, and my hands were shaking so badly the zipper kept snagging on the lining. "Don't you dare walk out that door," she hissed, voice tight like she was holding her breath. My dad stood behind her in the hallway, blocking the light, his shadow filling the frame like a threat. He didn't even have to raise his voice for it to feel like he was yelling. "Put it back," he said. "Now." My throat was burning, like I'd swallowed something sharp. I tried to pull my arm free and she held tighter, and I heard myself say, louder than I meant to, "You're hurting me." She didn't let go. Her eyes were bright and furious, like my pain was an inconvenience. My dad took one step forward, and I swear the whole floor felt like it tilted. It was a Tuesday night when it finally exploded, but honestly, it had been building for years.
I'm 24F.
My parents are in their late 50s. We're the kind of family that looks close from the outside, group photos on the wall, matching Christmas pajamas, my mom sending food to anyone who sneezes within a 5-mile radius. But inside the house, closeness meant compliance. It meant my dad could decide what was best for me, like he was still signing my permission slips. It meant my mom could call it love while she monitored every little detail of my life, down to how late I slept on weekends. I'd moved back after college because they insisted it was smarter, cheaper, a head start. And at first, I believed them. I told myself it was temporary, that adult life was expensive, that a little help was in control. But living under their roof meant living under their rules, and their rules never updated to match the fact that I was an adult. The argument that night started because I made the mistake of speaking like I had agency. I came home from work, my real job, which is what they call it now, even though they spent a year trying to talk me out of it, and said I'd gotten an offer. Not a promotion. Not a raise. An offer in another city. A 1-year training program with a company I'd been freelancing for on weekends, the kind of opportunity you don't get twice if you're trying to build a career in design. I'd been secretly saving for months. I'd mapped out rent estimates, transport costs, even the cheapest grocery stores nearby, like I was planning a military operation. I didn't come in waving it like a flag. I said it carefully, almost gently, like if I used the right tone they'd hear me. My dad didn't even let me finish. "No," he said, like he was answering a toddler asking for candy. "You're not moving." I laughed because I genuinely thought he was joking. That was my first mistake. His eyes sharpened. "What's funny?"
I'm
not asking," I said, and my voice did this little wobble at the end that made me hate myself instantly. My mom set down the serving spoon like she was placing a weapon on the table. "Then you're being disrespectful." It was so quick. Offer becomes disrespect. Dream becomes disobedience. Everything funnels back into the same category, threat. They came at it from different angles, like a practiced routine. My dad did the logic act, stability, finances, future. My mom did the emotions, safety, family, what-ifs, who will help you if something happens. Then they both landed on the real thing, the part they always circled but rarely said out loud. "You belong here. With us. Within reach." My dad started listing all the reasons it was stupid. "You know how expensive rent is? You think you're going to be fine on some internship money? What if they drop you? What if you can't handle it? What if you get sick?" I said, "I've saved. And it's paid. It's a contract." My mom's voice got high and breathy. "A contract doesn't mean anything.
People lie.
Companies lie. And you're naive." Naive. Like I hadn't spent years being the responsible one. Like I hadn't done their taxes online because my dad refused to learn. Like I hadn't been the one to drive my mom to appointments because she gets anxious on highways. Naive. I tried to stay calm. I really did. I kept my palms flat on the table because I'd read somewhere that it helps you keep steady. I said, I need to do this. I'm not leaving forever. It's a year. My dad leaned back in his chair. That slow exhale he does when he's about to be condescending. You're not ready for that kind of responsibility. Something in my chest tightened so hard it felt like my ribs were squeezing. I said, I'm already responsible. I'm the one who... Don't start. My mom cut in, eyes flashing. Don't throw things back in our faces. We've done everything for you. There it was. The invoice. The invisible receipt they waved whenever I tried to step out of the shape they'd molded me into. Then my dad said the line that tipped me over. You're acting selfish. Selfish. I stared at him like he'd slapped me. It was such a clean, cruel word. Like wanting a future that didn't revolve around their comfort was a moral failure. My mouth went dry and suddenly I could hear the refrigerator humming, the clink of my mom's bracelet as she crossed her arms, the faint sound of a neighbor's TV through the wall. Tiny sounds made huge because my whole body was braced for impact. I stood up too fast, chair legs screeching against the tile. I'm not selfish, I said, and I hated how small it sounded. I'm trying to live. My mom's eyes filled immediately. She's always been good at tears. So we're just what? Nothing to you. That's not what I said. But it's what you mean, she shot back. You want to leave and abandon us because you think you're better now. My dad pointed his fork at me like it was a gavel. Sit down. We're not done talking. I felt my face get hot. Yes, we are. And I walked out. I went straight to my room, shut the door, and stood there for a second with my back against it, breathing like I'd run upstairs. My hands were sweaty.
My heart was trying to escape my chest.
I could hear them talking in the kitchen, low and urgent, like I was a problem they needed to solve. I looked around my room, posters from high school, a laundry basket that never quite stayed empty, the same desk I'd done homework at when I was 15, and something about it made me furious. It felt like a museum of the person they preferred me to be. I pulled my suitcase out from under the bed. It rolled over a sock, and I almost tripped. I started grabbing clothes, not even thinking about what matched.
Jeans.
Underwear. My work blazer. My laptop. My passport. I yanked open my drawer for my documents folder because my dad kept threatening to hold onto it for safekeeping, like I was incompetent. As I stuffed things into the case, my hands started shaking harder and I kept swallowing because I didn't want to cry. Crying felt like giving them proof that I was unstable. Then my mom barged in without knocking. Of course. She saw the suitcase and her whole face changed, like a mask dropped. What are you doing? I'm leaving, I said, like saying it plainly would make it real. You are not leaving, she said, stepping forward. Stop being dramatic. My dad appeared behind her, filling the doorway. Put it away. I'm not a child, I said, and my voice cracked on child. That made my dad's jaw clench. You're acting like one, he snapped. That's when my mom grabbed my arm.
Hard.
Like she could physically keep me in the life she'd chosen for me. The pressure was sharp, and this hot sting ran up my skin. You're not going, she said through her teeth. Not like this. Not because you're throwing a tantrum. I tried to pull away, and she tightened. You're hurting me, I said, and my voice was weirdly calm, like I'd stepped outside myself. My dad took a step in. Don't talk to your mother like that. I stared at him. She is hurting me. My mom finally let go like it burned her, and she did this laugh sob that made my stomach turn.
Fine. Go.
Go ruin your life. Go crawl back when you realize you can't make it. My dad's face was hard. If you leave this house tonight, don't expect support. I nodded like I understood, even though my brain was screaming. Okay. You're choosing this, he said. No, I said, zipping the suitcase with a yank that made my knuckles hurt. You're choosing this. You're forcing me to choose. I walked past them, suitcase, wheels thumping over the hallway rug. My mom followed, talking fast, throwing out every fear she could think of like confetti. Where will you even go? It's late. You have work. You're being irrational. People will take advantage of you. What if something happens and we don't know? My dad stood by the front door like a bouncer. Hand me your keys, he said. I froze.
What?
The car is in my name, he said. You're not taking it. It was such a petty, perfect move. Not to stop me entirely, just to make me scramble. To make leaving harder, so I'd reconsider. My hands went numb. I put the suitcase down, reached into my bag, and pulled out my own car keys. It's in my name too, I said, voice shaking. I paid the insurance. He blinked, caught off guard. You wouldn't dare. I did dare. I walked around him, opened the door, and the cold air hit my face like a slap. My mom called my name, suddenly softer. Honey, please.
Come back.
We can talk. My body actually swayed toward her for half a second. That old reflex. That training. Then I remembered her nails in my arm, the word selfish, the way my dad said no like he owned my future. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. I sat in my car in the driveway with my hands on the steering wheel, breathing so hard I felt dizzy. The house lights glowed warm in the windows like everything was normal inside, like I was the one creating chaos. My phone buzzed immediately, messages, calls. I didn't look. I started the car and backed out, the headlights sweeping over the front of the house, and I had this irrational fear my dad would run out and stand behind the car to stop me. He didn't. The driveway opened to the street, and suddenly I was moving, and the motion felt unreal, like a video game. I ended up at my friend Talia's place, 25F, because she'd been my lifeline for months. She'd watched me shrink around my parents, watched me flinch when my phone lit up with Mom calling, watched me rehearse conversations like I was preparing for court. When I knocked, she opened the door in sweatpants and her hair in a messy bun, and the second she saw my suitcase, her face changed. Oh, she said quietly, and stepped aside. I didn't even make it to the couch. I sat on the floor by the coffee table and started crying so hard my chest hurt. Talia didn't ask questions. She just brought me water, then a blanket, then sat beside me like a guard dog. That night, I slept maybe 2 hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mom's face in the doorway, my dad's shadow. The way he said, hand me your keys. My phone buzzed until it died. In the morning, I went to work like nothing happened because I didn't know what else to do. My eyes were swollen. My cheeks felt tight from crying. I told my boss I'd had a family situation and might need a day or two. He looked at me like he wanted to ask more, but didn't. I spent that whole day moving like a person underwater, drinking too much coffee, checking my phone in the bathroom, reading my mom's texts in a stall like I was hiding from myself. The messages came in waves. First anger, then guilt, then panic. My mom wrote, "Come home. This is insane." Then, "We love you. We just want what's best." Then, "Your father is so hurt." Then, "If you loved us, you wouldn't do this." My dad sent one message. Just one. "You're making a mistake." 2 days later, they showed up at my work. I was in the break room stirring sugar into tea I didn't even want, and my coworker poked her head in and said my name with this wary expression. "There's people here asking for you." I walked out and saw my parents in the lobby, my mom in her nice coat like this was a parent-teacher meeting, my dad with his arms folded. I felt my whole body go cold. My boss was standing there too, polite smile frozen on his face. My mom said, loud enough for the receptionist to hear, "There you are. We need to talk." I said, through clenched teeth, "Not here." My dad's eyes darted over my outfit like he was inspecting a uniform. "You can't ignore us. You ran away like a child." My boss looked uncomfortable. "Is everything okay?" My mom turned to him instantly, sweet voice on. "Oh yes, she's just having a little phase."
Phase.
Like my life was acne. I felt humiliation crawl up my neck. "I'm going outside," I said to my boss, and he nodded, clearly relieved to get them out of the lobby. I walked out with my parents behind me, the glass doors whooshing shut like a judge's gavel. In the parking lot, my mom grabbed my hand like we were a couple on a stroll. "Come home," she said, low and urgent. "Your father didn't sleep. He's sick with worry." My dad said, "We need to be realistic. That program you're talking about, it's not going to happen. You don't have the money." I stared at him.
Aita.
He scoffed. "No, you don't. We've seen your bank statements." My stomach dropped so fast I thought I'd throw up. What? My mom's eyes flicked away, guilty for half a second before she recovered. "We had to. We're your parents." I felt like the ground changed under my feet. All those months of saving, all those careful plans, and they'd been watching. They'd been counting, waiting for the moment to tell me I couldn't. I heard my own voice come out thin and sharp. "You've been going through my accounts?" My dad shrugged like it was normal. "We're making sure you don't ruin your future." My hands started shaking again, that same tremor as the suitcase zipper. "You can't do that." My mom squeezed my hand, nails digging in lightly like a reminder. "Don't be dramatic." And that was the moment, standing in the parking lot with cars passing and my boss watching from inside through the glass, that I realized this wasn't going to stop unless I stopped it. Not argued. Not explained.
Stopped.
I said, "Do not come to my work again. If you show up here, I will call security." My mom's face cracked. "You wouldn't." "I would," I said. My voice steadied as I spoke, like my spine finally remembered it existed. "You are embarrassing me. You are crossing a line." My dad's face went purple. "After everything we've done, you're threatening us?" "I'm setting a boundary," I said, and I could tell by their expressions that the word boundary sounded like an insult in their language. My mom started crying immediately, tears spilling like a faucet.
"We're losing you," she said.
"No," I said, and my throat tightened. "You're trying to own me." My dad stepped closer. "You're coming home tonight." I shook my head.
"No."
"You don't know what you're doing," he hissed. I looked him in the eye. "Then let me learn." I walked back inside while my legs felt like rubber. The tea in my hand had gone cold. My boss met me in the hallway and asked quietly if I needed to go home. I almost laughed. "Home," I said. "I'm fine." And it was the first time in my life I said it and meant, "I will handle this." That night, I did something I'd never done. I changed every password. Banking, email, everything. I opened a new account at a different bank. I put my important documents in a folder and left them at Talia's place. I started looking for rooms to rent near the city where my program would be. I called the company and confirmed my spot like I was anchoring myself to something solid. Every small action was like laying one brick down in a wall between me and my parents' control. I didn't tell them any of it. Not because I wanted revenge, because I wanted peace. And this is where I'm going to pause the story for a second, because I know if I was reading this on Reddit, I'd already be typing paragraphs in the comments. My parents would swear they're the good guys here, and that's what makes them so dangerous. They're not cartoon villains. They're not twirling a mustache while plotting my downfall. They're regular people using love as a leash and calling it protection. My dad is the kind of man who thinks fear equals wisdom, and if he can picture something going wrong, he treats it like a prophecy. My mom is the kind of woman who weaponizes emotions so effectively she probably doesn't even realize she's doing it anymore. The crying isn't just sadness. It's a tool that turns my independence into an attack. And me? I get why people might say I should have moved out earlier, should have fought harder, should have just said no. But living in a house where your autonomy is treated like betrayal rewires you. You start negotiating your own life like you're asking for permission to breathe. I don't think leaving in the middle of the night was immature. I think it was survival. If you wait for controlling people to give you a graceful exit, you'll die in their waiting room. My only criticism of myself is that I wasted years trying to earn a version of their approval that was never going to come, because approval, for them, is just another way of keeping me close. So, a lot happened after that parking lot showdown, and honestly, I didn't even recognize my own life for a while, because everything was moving so fast. First, I officially accepted the program offer and signed the paperwork. I paid the deposit out of my new account like I was doing something illegal. I didn't tell my parents the exact start date or the address because I had this sick feeling they'd show up again, not to support me, but to interrupt me. For a couple weeks, my mom went quiet, which was almost worse than the constant texting. Then she tried a different approach. Kindness that felt like bait. She'd send messages like, "I made your favorite soup," and "Your room is exactly how you left it," and "We miss you, come over for dinner, no arguing." Talia told me to treat it like dealing with a toddler who just learned a new manipulation tactic. Acknowledge without rewarding. So I'd reply, "Hope you're well," and leave it there. It felt cruel, but it also felt like taking my hands off a hot stove. Then my dad tried the practical sabotage route. He emailed my aunt and uncle, and suddenly my phone was blowing up with relatives acting like I'd joined a cult. My aunt called me ungrateful. My uncle left a voicemail saying my parents were aging, and I needed to be more respectful. The family group chat became this passive-aggressive prayer circle for my confusion. I left the chat. That was another thing I'd never done. My hands shook when I hit exit, but afterward I felt this quiet relief, like I'd turned down the volume on a constant buzzing. The hardest part, though, wasn't the drama. It was the loneliness. Everyone tells you moving out is freedom, but no one tells you how loud silence can be when you're used to constant noise. Even if the noise was stress. Even if it was control. There were nights I lay on Talia's couch staring at the ceiling, listening to her fridge click on and off, and all I could think was, what if they're right and I can't do this? What if I crumble the minute I'm on my own? I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to call my mom the way I used to, and then I'd remember her nails in my arm and the way she called my independence a phase, and I'd put the phone down like it had teeth. I found a room to rent in the new city. Tiny, overpriced, but clean. The first time I saw it, the window was open and the curtains were moving in the breeze, and I had this weird urge to cry because it was the first space that was mine without being monitored. I paid the bond, signed the lease, and moved in with 2 suitcases and a box of kitchen stuff Talia insisted I take. The room had a tiny desk, a bed frame that squeaked, and a closet door that stuck. It also had a lock that I owned. The program started, and it was harder than I expected. Not because I wasn't capable, but because stress hits differently when you don't have a safety net you trust. I'd come home exhausted, eat cereal for dinner, and then stare at my budget spreadsheet like it was a horror movie. I made friends, but slowly. I didn't know how to show up as myself without scanning for consequences. I was always braced for someone to take something away. A month in, my mom showed up at my old workplace again, trying to check in on me, and my boss texted me. "Your parents came by. I sent them away." I read the message 3 times, heart hammering, and realized they were still trying to locate me through my life like tracking a tagged animal. That was when I finally did something people had told me to do for years. I told them in writing that if they continued to show up uninvited, I would limit contact completely. I kept it calm. I didn't insult them. I just stated facts. My fingers were numb when I hit send. My dad replied, "You think you're so grown now." My mom replied, "I can't believe you'd treat us like strangers." And for the first time, I didn't scramble to fix their feelings. I let them be upset. Then, unexpectedly, my dad got sick. Not dramatic hospital bed goodbyes, but serious enough to scare everyone. Chest pain, tests, the possibility of something worse. My mom called me crying, not the manipulative kind this time, but the messy, terrified kind. I sat on my bed in my tiny room and felt my whole body split in 2. One side wanted to rush back and become the daughter who solves everything. The other side remembered the way they tried to control me and thought, if I go back, I might never leave again. I went. But I went differently. I visited the hospital for one afternoon. I didn't stay at their house. I got a cheap hotel nearby, and my mom acted offended until she realized I wasn't debating it. My dad looked smaller in the hospital bed, pale and stubborn even with the monitor beeping. When he saw me, his eyes softened for a second, and then the pride came back like armor. "So you came," he said, like he was surprised I was capable of love and boundaries at the same time. I sat by the bed and told him about my program in small, safe pieces. He listened in this tense way, like listening meant surrender. My mom hovered, wiping invisible crumbs off the chair, the way she does when she's anxious. At one point, She reached for my hand, and this time it wasn't a grip. It was a request. I let her hold it, but I kept my posture straight, like I was reminding my own body that I could be here without folding. My dad ended up being okay. Medication, lifestyle changes, a hard wake-up call. But the scare did something to my parents. Not a complete transformation. People don't rewrite decades overnight. But a crack formed in their certainty. My mom started saying things like, "I just want you safe," instead of, "You can't do this." My dad stopped using the word selfish. He didn't apologize, but he stopped tightening the leash as aggressively. And then, a few weeks later, my mom called me and said, quietly, "Your room feels empty." I said, "I'm not coming back." She was silent for a long moment, and then she said, "I know." And her voice sounded like someone finally accepting gravity. After that, we started rebuilding in small steps. Short calls, neutral topics, me hanging up when they got snippy, me visiting for lunch instead of dinner so I could leave easily, my dad making an effort to ask instead of order, my mom learning, slowly, that tears don't automatically change the outcome anymore. Now, back to the story. When the program ended, I got offered a full-time role with the same company. I remember sitting at my desk staring at the email, reading the salary number, and laughing out loud because it felt unreal. I called Talia first, of course. Then I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over my mom's contact, and I felt that old fear rise. If I tell them, will they find a way to turn it into theirs? I called anyway. My mom answered on the second ring. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, cautious like she was handling glass. "I got the job," I blurted. There was a pause, and for a second my stomach dropped, expecting criticism. Then she exhaled. "You did?" "Yeah," I said, and my eyes stung. "I did." My dad got on the line a minute later. "So," he said, gruff, "you made it." I waited for the but. It didn't come. "I made it," I said. A few months after that, I moved into a slightly bigger place, still modest, but with a kitchen that wasn't a hallway and a window that actually brought in sun. I bought a second-hand couch. I hung art on the walls without asking if it matched the curtains. I adopted a cat that instantly acted like she paid rent. I started therapy, not because I was falling apart, but because I was tired of carrying my parents' voices around in my head like they were narrating my choices. The first time my mom visited my new place, she stood in the doorway and looked around like she didn't know where to put her hands. "It's nice," she said, and I could tell she wanted to add for a single girl, or small, or temporary. She didn't. She walked to the window and touched the curtain fabric like she was grounding herself. My dad didn't come inside at first. He stood by the car, arms folded. Then he finally stepped in, looked around, and nodded once. "You're doing all right," he said, like he was granting a certificate. I should have been annoyed. Instead, I felt oddly tender because that was the best he could do right then. They still try sometimes. My mom still asks too many questions. My dad still offers unsolicited advice disguised as warnings. But now, when they push, I push back. Calmly. Without flinching. I say, "That's not up for discussion." I say, "I've decided." I say, "If you keep talking like that, I'm going to hang up." And when I say it, I mean it. And here's the part one didn't expect. The more I held my boundaries, the more room there was for actual love. Not the love that's conditional on obedience, but the messy, imperfect love that survives the truth. I didn't have to become their version of me to stay connected. I just had to stop negotiating my future, like it was a family vote. All right, here's my completely biased, highly entertained by my own chaos opinion on everyone involved. My dad is the king of, I'm just being logical, while emotionally bulldozing everyone around him. He's the type who thinks control equals protection, and he probably believes he's a hero for preventing disaster, even when the disaster is just me choosing a life he didn't design. He doesn't get a gold medal for loving me if his love comes with a steering wheel attached. He deserves consequences, not cruelty. meaning he deserves to feel what it's like when I don't fold, when his disapproval doesn't change the outcome, when his authority stops working like a remote control. My mom is more complicated because she's softer on the surface, but sneakier with the manipulation. The tears, the guilt, the "we're losing you" lines. She's basically an emotional magician pulling handcuffs out of a hat and calling it a hug. She deserves honesty. Not the kind where I scream at her, but the kind where I don't rescue her from discomfort anymore. Because the truth is, she trained herself to panic whenever I stepped away, and she trained me to fix that panic. Untraining that is painful, but it's necessary. Talia deserves a standing ovation and a lifetime supply of whatever snack she likes. She was the kind of friend who didn't just say, "Leave like it's easy." She provided the couch, the calm voice, the reality checks, the practical help that turns a desperate decision into an actual plan. And me? I'm proud of her. I'm proud of me. Not because I'm some unstoppable girl boss, but because I finally stopped confusing fear with fate. I stopped letting my parents' anxiety masquerade as my destiny. The whole story is basically this. My parents thought love meant ownership, and I had to prove that love can exist without a leash. It's messy. It's still imperfect. But I'd rather have an imperfect relationship built on boundaries than a close family built on quiet surrender.